Hello, everyone, and this is Flamamancer coming to you live from the Matrix. So yeah, we got some stuff we need to talk about. As you can probably tell from the name of the channel, Defrauded Students, this channel is dedicated to videos about defrauded students and what they're going through. For the uninitiated, defrauded students are students that went to a school of higher learning, college, whatever you want to call it, that were lied to by the institution of higher learning. So, for example, some college may promise you things such as a high-quality education at such and such a price, and when you graduate, there'll be loads of jobs available for you. Only when you go through it, the job skills that you require are junk. The instructors, the teachers, the professors, what do you want to call them, don't know what they're talking about. And then when you graduate, nobody wants to hire you. All this intentional, of course. So, understandably, some institution could say these are the job placement rates for right now, and then after graduation they change because businesses went from ABC computing to XYZ computing. So I understand that not a fault for everything, but there are times where they are a deliberate fraud. The classic examples of these are ITT Tech and Corinthian College. The butt of jokes nowadays. When you say you have a degree from ITT Tech today, people just kind of look at you and laugh. So, today I'd like to talk about Betsy DeVos and the free market all in one rant. So, for those of you that may be unaware, the current Secretary of Education is someone named Betsy DeVos, and they put a huge roadblock in the way for defrauded students that were lied to by their schools and getting their student loans forgiven, which at that point is nothing more than a anchor attached to their ankle that they cannot get away from and having a very difficult time paying it off. Not to mention that it's a roadblock in all of the things that they need to accomplish in life. So the process for having your student loans forgiven is a system called borrower defense to repayment. And it came into law during the Obama administration, and Betsy DeVos inherited it, and she didn't like it. She believed that it was too easy to have your student loans forgiven under it, which, I don't know, maybe it was. Beats me. But she has placed a large burden of proof upon people filing to have their student loans forgiven. So she requires that the person establish on an individual level that they are victims of fraud, which is not in and itself unreasonable until you understand just what she wants you to accomplish in order to do it. So, some background on me. I went to school in the early 2000s. And back then we didn't have anybody to turn to. There was no government agency to call. You could write your congressman, I guess. And the public, the only thing that they had on their minds was that, at least at one time, ITT Tech was a reputable American institution, and they couldn't imagine how an American institution of higher learning could become corrupt. In their minds, it's kind of like, I don't know, like there's a corrupt member of clergy or something. They're like, well, how does that happen? Okay, yeah, I understand that does happen, but you just kind of get like a stare at, and people act like you're from another dimension or something. So, anyways, all these years later, now we finally have something that we can do about it, at least from the government side of things. And she wants you to put the proof down on the table, like physical evidence or something, like this is some kind of crime scene. And the problem is that for people in my situation especially, is that the crime scene is very, very old. We're talking early 2000s, so everything that I may have been able to collect back then to bring to the table has been long since thrown away. And it's not like I had the option back then of really doing anything about it after I realized that I was in trouble. So, how do I proceed from there? Well, I type in whatever I can, I submit it, and from what I understand, the success rate is extremely low. Now, I can prove on a broad basis that fraud had occurred because I can demonstrate things such as high default rates on loans given to people that had gone to ITT Tech or Corinthian colleges, the poor skills demonstrated by the students that went there, and things of this nature. But according to her, that's just not enough. You got to prove that you're a victim of fraud on an individual basis, and that showing the broad standard proof is just not enough. So there's only one solution, and that is to find somebody else that's going to fix it, at least on the government side. So that's the problem we're having DeVos right now. When you look up DeVos on, say, Google, you never find in one place where she lays out her entire vision for what education should be, what the end game is, in her opinion. All you find are these bits and pieces. I suppose maybe if you attend one of her speeches, maybe then she would put it all out in one go. So when I talk about and critique her philosophy, I'm only working on what little bits I've got. But from what I'm reading, it looks like she's in favor of a free market system when it comes to education. And I'm not against the free market at all. But at the same time, I haven't had a whole lot of luck using free market tools to fix our situation. I mean, there's been some success. I heard somewhere that some university was giving some kind of leniency to former ITT students that go to their institution of higher learning. But other than that, there's really been nothing. So, continuing on about the free market, when I watch videos that say the channel Stefan Molyneux, he's a free market fanboy, for lack of a word. Nothing wrong with that. But when I watch videos and listen to his arguments, and people just like him, they believe that if we went to a pure free market system, that the people in business would act upon these kind of problems because they'd have a incentive to do so. Such as the fact that their talent pool is shrinking because people going into college get a junk degree that they can't use to get a job, and then their ability to go back into school after they realize they got a junk degree and try again, well, it's pretty low chance they're going to have much success in that because they already got debt now. And they're going to gamble again and roll the dice. So, the free market tools that we have, they're ineffective because it doesn't work that way. Businesses, they don't hire ITT Tech and Corinthian graduates and a long list of other schools that are just like them. They don't hire them, but they don't do anything to fix the problem. And when my associates would approach these people to maybe speak up about it, they won't do it, and the general impression that we're getting from them is that they don't want to do it because, remember, ITT Tech was still open back then, and they're worried they'll get sued. Potentially. I mean, the potential's there. And they also don't want to get put in the spotlight. And let's not forget that being able to sue somebody is a free market tool. So free market tools are being used to prevent the problem from being fixed. Do you understand where I'm getting at? So the reason why so many defrauded students are turning to the government now is because during the 2000s we exhausted the free market options to fix the problem, and none of them worked. And none of them are still working now. Businesses not speaking up about the problem. And so we have no choice but to seek any tool that we can use to fix the problem at hand. I have no problem with the free market fixing the problem, but when you're in our situation, you have to use what you have available. When people that are unsympathetic to our cause hear about this, they basically expect us to just, well, eat it, I guess. I mean, eat our bowl of raw sewer and just live with it. And the thing of it is that when you have a debt like this over your head, you can't do anything with your life. All right. So in my situation, I might be making $1,000 a month, right? With a roughly $250 student loan payment. So the student loan payment is taking up a quarter of my income, and it's not doing anything for me. I'm not getting any jobs with it because they won't hire me because I have an IT tech degree. And the rest of the money just goes to cover basic living expenses. You know, food and a tiny hole of an apartment to live in. And so I have no surplus money to go out and expand myself, improve my situation. So if there's a job hiring fair going on out of town, I can't afford the gas to go to it. And trying to go back into college is out because I'm already in debt, and if I go back in, roll my dice again, and then it fails, well, now I'm in a real deep hole then again, all right? I might go to a legitimate college this time, and I might get a degree, but things might just not work out. I might get a degree in ABC computing, and then by the time I get out, businesses have switched to XYZ computing. And now I'm in a deeper hole than I was before. And maybe I would go back to college, maybe things would work out. I don't know, but it might not. And with that extra debt, then I'd be really being homeless. And now, in my particular situation, though, I got something different. I hear people being able to go on forbearance for like a long time, like years. That never happened with me. I had a limited number of times that I could apply for forbearance. And once those were used up, I couldn't apply for forbearance anymore, so I couldn't postpone payments. And the private student loans that I was forced to take out to complete my education at ITT Tech, you could not apply for forbearance for those loans. So when I'm living off $1,000 a month, and the payment comes due, I have to pay. If I don't, they're going to send out the gangsters to break my kneecaps if I don't. They're going to garnish my wages and stuff like that. So for years, many years, I had no money to do anything. And I'm approaching middle age right now. And I spent many, many years with just not any money to do anything whatsoever. Just hung around my local area and all the free things that were available to do. Like go for jogs or something. That's what I did. No going to the movie theaters. No pizza in the freezer. No beer and like that. Whenever any opportunity may be out there that requires even a little bit of money, I had no ability to go out and do it. Also, I can make the student debt loan payment. So, going back to free market, why aren't they allowing bankruptcy? If I could have filed for bankruptcy, I would have done it immediately. And what this would allow me to do is, okay, my credit's bad, but I mean, in my case, my credit is in a way already bad because I have a huge amount of debt already, and so you can't buy a house with a mountain of debt because they're gonna say, "Oh, look, you got a bunch of debt there, and you're trying to apply for another loan with your level of income." I don't think so, right? But going back to bankruptcy, I don't understand why the people that are unsympathetic to our cause, I should say, those people, plus the people that are in favor of the free market, those two things together, people that are unsympathetic and in favor of free market, they don't want us to have the ability to apply for bankruptcy, file for bankruptcy, I should say. I don't understand why. It doesn't make any sense because bankruptcy is a tool of the free market. And because bankruptcy was not allowed years ago, they took it away, it's created a bubble effect. Right? Now, the reason why bankruptcy is a favored tool of the free market is because mistakes happen, winds blow the wrong way, the ships go off course. So rather than tell somebody who has a lot of debt hanging over their heads that they have to pay it, and again, we're talking about debts that are so big that it either does two things. Either you'll never repay it at all, like it's so massive that it can never be repaid, so it doesn't make any sense to garnish the wages every month because it'll only pay off a tiny portion, or the other scenario where, yes, you could pay it, but it'll disrupt all of your life. I don't know what to call it. Life essentials, like trying to have kids and stuff, feed them. And so bankruptcy allowed those people to, I wouldn't say get out of it, but it's going to ruin your credit, right? But it allowed them to keep the shirts in their back, at least. And so because the particularly American free market system, we really have a hybrid system right now, but because the American free market system understood this, they didn't like the old British model where bankruptcy was rather limited. They made you pay. I mean, they made you work in the salt mines till the debt was paid off, if necessary. But they learned from that, and they didn't like it, and so they allowed, in our system, they allowed bankruptcy. And has some amount of justification. I mean, some things are not your fault. In my case, I was lied to about a long list of things, long list of promises. They told me, for example, that I would have access to a library of ebooks called the ITT Tech Student Library, and they removed that from me, and this is supposed to be included in my cost of tuition, but they took it away, and they tried to tell us the reason why they're taking it away was because not enough people were using it. When, in the beginning, when I was promised these things, people using it was not said to us to be a prerequisite for its continued use, for us to allow to have continued access, I should say. So anyways, I don't understand why free market fanboys that are unsympathetic to our cause do not want free market tools to be used to remedy the situation. If bankruptcy were allowed, the bank, which is the U.S. government at this point, would be forced to take action to make sure that institutions are not fraudulent before they give them the ability to use loans to cover the cost of attending school. I mean, theoretically, they're supposed to be covering that now. I mean, part of the reason that we went to these schools is because the government told us that these were real schools by allowing the use of government-backed student loans to cover the expense of the education. Now, again, going back to the free market, you might be asking, why should the bank forgive us our loans? Well, I've had my credit card stolen before, and people ran up charges. It wasn't my fault that my credit card number was stolen. Well, okay, as best as I know, it wasn't my fault. I don't know how they got it. I have no clue. I only use my card on reputable websites, such as Walmart.com. And I don't go to any businesses that I believe are trying to steal my number. Like, I don't go see some roadside stand and then go pay for my flea market stuff with a card. I would pay cash because it'd be just like them to sell things at a flea market, at a reduced rate only to steal credit cards. So I don't know how they got my credit card number, but they made a bunch of charges before they finally froze the account to do further investigations. And they forgave me for the fraudulent charges. Right? So, credit cards forgive fraudulent charges. And when I read stories about people that made a real estate loan and it turned out to be fraudulent, like they had sold a piece of property to multiple people, they forgive the loan. So I don't understand what's the difference. My school lied to me. They told me I'd get a quality education, but instead the instructors didn't know what they were teaching. In the most severe case, he could not get the Microsoft product that we were supposed to be learning. He couldn't even get it to start. We spent the entire classroom time just sitting at our desks watching the instructor try to start it. And online tutorials back then on these kind of topics were sparse, nearly non-existent. And the product that he had was on a removable hard drive that only he was allowed to have. So he could not hand it to one of us and let us try to figure out on our free time. We just show up for class every day. Well, not every day, every week. And we'd watch him trying to get it to start, to no avail. He gave us all A's in the end. So, under such circumstances, according to the free market, it should be dischargeable in some way. Bankruptcy, forgiveness, or something. But again, the people that are unsympathetic to our cause, for some strange reason, don't think that should be allowed. I think they believe that it would have to be paid for by taxpayers, but in free market institutions like the credit card company, what they have to do to cover it is increase the interest rates. So really the cost would go to other people that have student loans that are successful, but you may be saying, well, that's unfair to them. Well, yeah, okay, maybe a little bit if they pull through, but at the same time, they're also paying for insurance if things should go wrong on their end. If they have some career and then their career fails for some reason, and maybe it's even their fault. The fact that they paid the extra interest for the people that declared bankruptcy means that they can declare bankruptcy now if the career is dead for some reason when they were successful up to that point. So moving on, I would want people that are in favor of the free market to consider the fact that bankruptcy reform should be allowed. It would get the government to get more involved on who they're what kind of education programs that they're giving out loans to. I mean, we have the joke going now is people going into school to get degrees in underwater basket weaving, because they get these degrees that don't lead to a job, and they're not fraudulent. I mean, they really do deliver on what they promised as far as what you're going to learn, but it's not lead to any job. I have no idea how in the world these people convinced themselves that going to such a thing was a good idea, but they did, and then they have no job prospects and stuff like that. And that would, more involvement from the bank, which at this point is the government, would prevent them from getting into that kind of situation. Because after some bankruptcies of people that owe under $100,000 on underwater basket weaving or some kind of liberal arts degree, that would cause them back real quick. So, anyways, I hope that rant was insightful, and I'll see you in the next one.